Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Gatekeepers. I'm Bishop Vanessa M. Brown, your host and moderator for this evening, and we are very glad to be here with you on tonight. We want to say thank you to Facebook, our Facebook folks, and our Instagram people, and our YouTube people, and our LinkedIn people, everyone who has been joining us from week to week. I'll tell you that we're excited to have you here. We are so glad that you are in our presence. On all the social media platforms where we can be found. Again, we are grateful for your presence on tonight. And so we want you all to start gathering in and sharing with one another that we are on. I am doing the same thing with folks, telling them to come on and make sure that they watch this on tonight. I see folks coming in already. I'm going to make sure that I start to shout people out and say hello to you. Before I start to do that, I just want to, make mention of a few things that's been going on. And so one of the things that we know that has happened, and that we talk about current events too, I'm just going to make mention of the fact that, information has leaked. And I don't, it's just leaked. That's all I'm going to say. And, they make a joke of it and they're trying to make light of everything that is going on, but it is a matter of national security. And, it's unfortunate that they are not taking it seriously and they are not taking their work seriously and they are not taking us as a people seriously. And so that is something that has been on my heart and my mind to say they're putting people's lives at stake, people that are in the military, divulging secret plans through Signal. So I know that many of you already heard about that. And I just want to say that I think that we have to be able to come together, and there's something that we can do. And I believe that people are doing it. I believe that people are protesting. I believe that people are boycotting. I believe that people are calling Congress. I believe that people are writing letters. And there is so much more that we can do. And so I am grateful for all of those that I know that are doing things in the ways that they do, from lawyers to Congress people to senators, and even with Congress, there are people who are not afraid to speak out. The governor of Maine, Governor Janet, is a powerful woman. And listen, she said that I don't serve a king. The people of Maine don't serve a king. Neither does this country serve a king. And we're not going to do it. We're not going to bow down and kiss the ring. This is not the way things are supposed to be. And so I'm looking for more governors. Governor Pritzker, thank you very much. He's been talking, governor of Chicago. He's a stand-up guy. He's been talking and saying what needs to be said. Grateful for mayors as well, the mayor of Chicago, the mayor of Newark. Like, I'm keeping track of people, you know what I mean, that we as people who have voted into office, whatever state that you live in, that are actually doing something, that are actually pushing back, that is letting them know that ICE cannot just enter into our state and do whatever it is that they want to do. I want to commend Governor Pritzker. I want to commend, Mayor Ras Baraka. I want to commend, Mayor, I think his name is Mayor Brandon out of Chicago. I want to commend these people for standing up and speaking out for such a time as this. And then I want to commend Jasmine Crockett. She's out here doing what needs to be done in Congress. Alexandria Ocasio, God bless you. Thank you so much. Not afraid to speak. And there's more. There are more people that are speaking out, that are standing up, that are pushing back, pushing back against them taking away Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare, pushing back at them going after the least vulnerable, the most marginalized, pushing back against against trans rights. Those of you that have been speaking out and saying, no, we're not going to allow you to do this to our trans siblings. We're not going to allow you to do this to our LGBTQI people. We're not going to allow you to do it to our gender nonconforming, gender non-binary people. Thank you for speaking out. Thank you for going beyond the gatekeepers. Come on. Thank you for stepping across the line and saying, no, I'm going to speak out, because this is not just about one group of people. I don't know what it is that you all seeing or envisioning, or how you all even feel about it. And you feel like you may not be affected, but we are all affected by everything that is going on. DEI, we can go on and on and on about the list of things that are happening in this nation that is not the way things are supposed to go. They are not following the rule of law, right? And I'm looking for lawyers, people who've taken an oath. I'm looking for people to stand up and say what needs to be said and do what needs to be done. I'm looking at the Supreme Court, right? You can't undermine yourself. Well, you can, but you can't. Like, what did you go to school for? You went to school, you know what the law is. And I expect for people to abide their end and to not sit down on the rule of law. We know what the Constitution says. We know what is supposed to be done, and I expect to see it. I expect to see more lawyers standing up, and I know that there are people in place already. right? I know that there are people in place. I know that people are fearful. I know that, at the end of the day, even people that travel, that, people are fearful that, that their passports are going to be confiscated, or fearful that they will not be able to return into this country because they're actually showing us that this is happening, right? All over the place. And so I want you all to know that we are on top of things. We see what's happening in this country. I know you see it, and I want you all to be able to speak up about it. Somebody was, for concern of me and Bishop London and those that, know that we travel and we're all in these different places, do we have security? No, we don't have security, because at the end of the day, it's going to be okay. We trust in the Lord, and we know it's going to be all right. And when we need to get somebody in place, we will get somebody in place to do that at this time. But no, we don't have security in place. We just need us as a people to make sure that we're banding together. Somebody said, what else can I do? I said, start showing up. Start showing up at meetings and coalitions and places and people that are planning things. Like, don't be, if you are in a sorority, show up at the Delta meetings. They're talking about it, or the AKA meetings, or the Zeta meetings. If you're a fraternity, show up at the Omega Psi Phi and the Kappas and the Alphas. Show up. Get in place, because it's going to take all of us of good conscience. It's going to take all hands on deck. I just saw a video clip, and somebody was, I think that Billy Porter shared it on Instagram, and it's a witch, and it's a witch, a self-professed witch, right? And someone else that's praying. I told somebody it's going to take all hands on deck. Y'all can get mad, you can plead the blood of Jesus all you want to. At the end of the day, it's going to take mediums and bishops, prophets, come on, and light workers. It's going to take every hand on deck. Those that practice indigenous faith religions are going to take all of us on deck to do the thing that need to be done. If we got to throw some cowrie shells, come on, let's go. Whatever it is that it's going to take for us to do, this is the way that we band together, and we're going to have to use all of our resources together to make this happen. All right. I want to shout out those that are here on tonight that's with us that I see. So I see Chuck Hunt in the room. Thank you. Monroe, Louisiana is here. And I say, God bless you. Y'all make sure y'all checking in and y'all sharing for me. Albert Reed from Colleen, Texas is in the house. God bless you. Dr. Pierre D. Chambers. Hello, Bishop. California is in the house. Professor Natasha Robinson is here. Good evening to you, Dr. Robinson. Glad that you're here. Dr. Elisa Lewis is here. God bless you, from California. Leo Mercado Bess is with us tonight. Thank you so much for being with us. Ohio, New York is here. And y'all do me a favor and keep sharing and letting folks know that we are on tonight. Bishop Flunda is having dental work, and it did not get done in time. And so she is still in that process. You all keep Bishop Flunda in your prayers on tonight. But I have a very exciting guest who is here with us on tonight. I want to make sure that we bring attention to the work that he is doing, the work that his mother is doing and has done, in the person of Loki Mulholland. Loki Mulholland is the founder and executive director of the Joan Trumpauer Mulholland Foundation. Loki, will you do us a favor and greet all of our online guests?
Oh, well, wonderful to be here. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We are glad to have you here, excited about your presence and about your work. Loki has a book, y'all. I'm going to tell you what it is. It is Get Back to the Counter, 7 Lessons from Civil Rights Icon Joan Trumpauer Mulholland. And the forward is by Ruby Bridges. And you all know who Ruby Bridges is. And so I want to make sure that you all can purchase this book. Pastor Sue is going to put all the links where you can buy it. We want to make sure that you purchase it. I see you, Darlene Connell. God bless you. Queens, New York in the house. She's going to put the link up so that you'll know where to purchase the book. And it's not through Amazon. Come on, right? It's not through Amazon. So we want you to buy this book. And we're going to give away a book tonight, courtesy of Loki Mulholland. And if you put hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers, hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers, all one word, you can win the opportunity for a book on tonight.
Now that's a signed book. That's signed by my mother, by the
A
way.
signed book.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you
yeah.
so much.
So
A signed book by Joan Trumpauer Mulholland. This is wonderful. We appreciate it so much and all the good work. Pastor Sue is already putting it down in the chat so you can see. This book, Get Back to the Counter, Loki, it delves into your mother's civil rights activism. What inspired you to tell this story in book form?
well, we have a documentary and called An
Yes.
Ordinary Hero, and I've done multiple films. Um, and we had kids' books. We just didn't have anything for adults. And I just didn't feel like doing a straight biography would be that interesting at this moment. And so I wanted to do something that would actually, well, what can we take from this? It's not so much just to learn about the past, but what can we, how can we apply this into our daily lives or any of the work that we do? And so that became the motivation to push that forward. And I just remember that my mom, it was when, she sat at that lunch counter, May 28th, 1963 in Jackson. When that famous picture of them pouring the sugar on her hair, right there. There's the picture. She says, like I wasn't sweet enough already. And then they grabbed her by the hair, and her and Annie, and jerked her off the stool, and then dragged her through the crowd. There's a mob of 300 to 400 people, and I remember asking her, I said, "What were you thinking when they were dragging you through that mob?" And she said, "Just get back to the counter." And so it was like, it's times like these where we do need to get back to the counter.
Yes, we do.
Whether it be just personally in our own lives or just through the work and the action that we need to be doing. It was interesting as you're mentioning the deltas. My mom's a Delta, of course.
Yes.
And we were just at a luncheon, and the keynote speaker said something I thought was really really beautiful. It was taking the words of Dr. King, but add a little bit of weight to that. And said, which is striking. I didn't know anyone could do that, but she did. She said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but we're the gravity that bends it towards justice.
We are
the gravity. We have to remember that we're the gravity that bends it towards justice. We need to be doing that work. And I was like, that's all right.
Yeah. It's up. This is what I'm saying. It's going to be up to us. Nobody can do the work for us. It's something that we need to do for ourselves. And with that, I want to show them a clip of that we have. We do. Yeah, we have this clip that's here. And I want to make sure that we can show this clip. Jackson, Mississippi, May 1963.
Okay.
Apparently some of the big time segregationist adults, probably the Sovereignty Commission or things that went down to high school and was encouraging the guys to come up to see what's happening at Woolworths. So I got quite a mob. And of course, these being high school students, one person would do something to us, call us a name, and then another student would try to outdo them with a worse name or dump something on us, and somebody would find something else to dump on us. And we got pretty well decorated with all the condiments that were out there. To me, the big story of that day is the photographer, Fred Blackwell. He was the same age as the demonstrators. He was 22. He had gone to the same high school as the kids in the mob. There's one kid with a cigarette, lived 3 doors down the street from Fred. I'd like to say that probably Fred dated the other guys' older sisters and hung out with their older brothers, but he knew a lot of them. So, of course, his sympathies were with his buddies. But he ended up standing on the lunch counter, taking pictures of us for 3 hours. And that was dangerous. The TV cameraman, had already been knocked to the floor and had his camera broken when he was filming Memphis. And often in demonstrations, the press, particularly the cameramen, were attacked even before the demonstrators because they were getting the goods on them. And if stuff starts flying, the press is in as much danger as the demonstrators, and stuff was flying. Well, Fred was up there for 3 hours, and by the time things were over, his sympathies had shifted to the nonviolent demonstrators. And I say that shows the power of nonviolence. Then a kid at a rival white high school saw pictures in the paper that evening and his heart was changed. He came to support the demonstrators. He was just your, typical segregationist high school student. And I found that out over 50 years later when I met him. That's the power of the press. So right in that one picture, it's not important because the back of my head is the central point. It's important because it encapsulates the power of Gandhian nonviolence and the power of the press. And that picture went worldwide. It was colorized in the Paris Match, which was a big time paper. It made international news. And I think it's the most widely used picture of any of the sit-ins.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's,
Yeah.
she also talks about that high school student who saw that photo, in the rival high school. She calls that, redemptive suffering as well.
Yeah.
And that power there, that Gandhi nonviolence and redemptive suffering combined. Memphis, she said Memphis, that was Memphis Norman. So when she was a spotter down the street. So this was a very organized event. Edgar and John Salter had planned this thing out. And so she was actually what was called a spotter. She could blend into the crowd because she was white, right? Use what you got. And so there was a demonstration down the street that was a diversion so that the sit-in could take place. But then it goes planned. The picketers got arrested almost immediately. So she calls Medgar's office, Medgar Evers, and lets them know what's going on, get the bond money and stuff. So that's like, let's go down and see what's going to happen at Woolworths. That's when they walk in and they see Memphis getting attacked by a former police officer that was considered so violent that he was too violent for the Jackson police force. So he was forced out, which speaks volumes. That Memphis was bleeding from every hole in his head and some new ones, and he had permanent headaches, the rest of his life.
Wow. Some kind of work. I see people are coming in the room, Loki, and some of them are your mother, Sora. Reverend DJ out of Nashville, Tennessee is here. Dr. Liz Rios is here. We're so glad that you all have come in from Chicago and all the places that you're here on tonight. We ask that you share. Let folks know that Loki Mulholland is on. He has a book. The book, it's a powerful book. It's called Get Back to the Counter. Get back to the counter. If you want to win an opportunity, you have to put hashtag. It's going to be a free book giveaway, hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers. However, we do want you to purchase the book as well. And you can also see it in inside of the chat or the comment section, wherever you're looking at, whether it be Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, and you'll see that information there. So, Loki, your mom was a white woman who stood alongside Black activists. And she stood alongside them because she believed in it. It was the struggle for equality. What do you believe, and what has she told you were some of the biggest misconceptions she's faced, both then and now?
Misconceptions about her or just in general?
Yeah, just about her being a white person in the struggle.
Yeah, it's a great question. I've never asked her beyond the obvious that, she's, a traitor and, that sort of, nonsense.
Yes.
But no, she just, I think the thing that perplexes people the most is why did she do it? Because she didn't have, seemingly a dog in the fight, right? And she said, well, I just believed what I was taught in Sunday school. Thy neighbor as thyself, do unto others you haven't done unto you. She says all that good King James stuff. She goes, I just believed it. And that she's either blessed or cursed with excessive determination. So she had, and she was confronted with the realities of separate but equal. This was before Brown versus Board, and embodied in a schoolhouse for Black students in Georgia when she was visiting her grandmother. And just the stark contrast of that one-room shack with no electricity or running water and a pot-belly stove for heat, and not a lick of paint, she says. In contrast to the brand new post-World War II brick school for the white students, she said it rattled her soul on that. So this is wrong and I'm going to do something about it. And so she would get that chance when the freedom, well, not the freedom rides, when the sit-ins started in Greensboro,
Mm-hmm.
February 1st, 1960. The next sit-ins were in Durham.
Yes.
And that's, she was attending Duke, and to say the rest is history.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Indeed. And right now, in a time when civil rights history is being challenged and not just challenged, but even erased in some places,
Mhm.
how do you see this particular book as a tool for education and activism?
Well, one, it's a history book, right? First and foremost. I mean, my mother is kind of the Forrest Gump of civil rights, right?
Yes.
She's a fascinating, figure in the movement. One, because of so many different events that she was involved in, right?
Yeah.
Or connected to, and where, like I just mentioned, the Greensboro sit-in, the Jackson sit-in. She knew Medgar and interacted with Dr. King and Fannie Lou Hamer and John Lewis, and the list goes on and on. She was part of the Freedom Rides, and she was on the Selma to Montgomery March, and she was there for the funeral of 3 of the girls that were killed in the bombing at 16th Street Baptist Church.
Mm-hmm.
She trained Mickey Schwerner, the 3 that were killed, Schwerner, Cheney, and Goodman.
Yes.
To stop Freedom Summer. Of course, the Klan tried to kill her first and failed. But so there's that uniqueness of history that's in the book, but also, not to put too fine a point on it, but the fact that she's a white Southern woman.
Yeah.
I mean, she's the embodiment of what Jim Crow and segregation were supposedly all about, right?
Yes.
Protecting our white, women, right? From the Black Beast rapists. That was the whole narrative. And she's like, well, I don't need your protection, and I don't want it. Right. But it demonstrates today for us as well that, a good friend of mine, Pastor Marlon Lynch III, once said, we need each other to survive. And we hear that we're all in this together. And she understood that, that we're all God's children. And so we need to act accordingly.
Thank you for this. Lessons. What lessons from your mother's activism do you think are most crucial for today's movements for racial justice?
I think there's several. One is, and I've heard this a lot lately. We get this all the time. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Well, it's in there, right? But we already have the blueprint for what we need to do. My mom and her friends already showed us, right? The challenge is that it takes a lot of work. It's not one Facebook post. It's not one day of boycotting. Those things are important, right? Cumulatively, it all adds up. But it's that that determination, of that persistency and consistency in particular that we need to have. There's lessons on adaptability, right? And about fear. My mom says, I don't do fear, right? But I think the most important lesson to me is something that's been missing in our society is empathy. That need for empathy and understanding. That lunch counter is a striking image, and when people see it, they immediately draw the line on who's good and who's bad, right? And that's pretty fair to say, right? My mom and her friends were on the right side. But those high schoolers, my mom says, I don't agree with them, but I understand them.
Right.
Because that's what they were taught, right? By their schools, and society and churches and so forth, that segregation.
And even their families.
Right. And they didn't know any different because that's how they were raised. That's how my grandmother tried to raise my mother, for goodness sakes. But she was able to break from that and go beyond that. But most people don't. And so she understood where they were coming from and could have empathy, at least an understanding of where they're at. And then I had someone once say, well, you don't walk in my shoes. I'm like, you're right, I don't. But I know what it's like to wear shoes, right?
Yeah.
And, we all have experiences that I think if we dig deep enough, intersect in some fashion. We've all had some similar experiences in some way that we can at least draw upon to learn that level of empathy that is needed to say, okay, well, this might not be my lived experience, but it definitely is yours. And so let me understand that and why is this important to you? Again, not everyone's experience or their perception of the world is correct. Don't get me wrong. But I believe in what I like to call intellectual nonviolence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Too often we're on social media and so forth, firing guns at each other, right? Dropping bombs and comments and things like that. And it's like, that doesn't get us anywhere. So to me, it's about meeting people where they're at. And we're all on different points in this journey. But meet them where they're at and then bring them along and work to help them understand. Because if you really want things to change, then you have to be willing to allow people to change. And too often, we don't want to allow people. And some people just won't. We have to accept that.
So given the political climate that we're in right now, what would you say? Because you hear, you see what's happening. In DEI, people are, threatening everything, basically making it a white versus black kind of situation. What are your feelings? Because we're talking about your mom, but what do you think, Loki?
Well, and we say it's a white versus black thing because that's the easy thing to go after. That's so surface level. Dr. King, Reverend Barber knows this as well. But that's what Dr. King was working on. At the end of the day, he realized, okay, this is beyond this. This is a class thing. This is the super wealthy against everyone else.
Absolutely.
And if we collectively understand that, which is what Dr. King was working on, let's bring poor whites and poor blacks together. The game's over, right? But they use those things like DEI, right? So suddenly, you don't want to say diversity, equity, and inclusion because everyone actually believes in diversity, equity, and inclusion. They, on the surface, they'll tell you yes. But if you say DEI, which they have no idea what that is, just like when they talked about CRT, is that right? Critical, right? They could spit acronyms, but they have no idea what they mean.
Yeah.
And so the irony right now is that they're saying that DEI are these programs that let people who are unqualified for their job, that they only got it because of their race or gender or sexual identity or whatever. And yet, one of the biggest fiascos we've seen thus far, and there's been a lot, is with what you alluded to in the beginning, the signal thing, right?
Yes.
These secrets. How this happened? Because we had these unqualified people who were hired based on their gender and race.
Absolutely.
Completely unqualified, but they got it because they're white, right? It's so. We can say that, right? And there's some things we just can't, there are, we can't compromise our morals for.
Correct.
And it's right is right, and we have to be willing to stand on that side. It can be very difficult to do so.
Yes.
And that's where it comes back to the most important element of all of that is it's not just merely we're going to take it to the streets. It's what's the plan? Because we took it to the streets in 2020, but there was no plan, right? They've had a plan since he left office. That plan.
I think the plan was before
2025. Sure, that's been a long time coming ever since Obama took off.
Yeah. But
here we are, and they are. It's the chaos plan, and organized people will always overcome organized chaos, and this is chaos that's been organized for the very purpose that we're seeing right now. But as we organize, we can overcome that. But we have to plan and be willing to work together and make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's clear that this is not about merit. It's not, or DEI or eradicating redundancy, all of the stuff that they're saying. In my eyes, this is actual segregation and it's illegal.
Yeah.
And if the courts, if our courts want to stand up, then they will know that they need to do something about it because this is what is happening is illegal. right?
I mean, look at what, so you go back to Reconstruction, right?
Yes.
Then the 1890 state constitutions started
Mhm.
with, started Jim Crow, 1890 Mississippi. The federal government kicks in segregation with Woodrow Wilson,
Yeah.
segregating his, decides, hey, we're going to be a segregated workplace, right? And that really kicks it on a whole federal level. So don't think it can't happen again, because that's what they're already trying to do. And it will be further
Absolutely.
amplified as they continue to push people out and continue to, curtail things. They know that the people that have access to Social Security and so forth, that have easy access to those locations, right? If you're going to close offices, watch where they close them. When
Yeah.
they,
Well, they're going to try to make it difficult for people to go.
right,
Absolutely.
and the people that are going to have the hardest time are the people who are marginalized, that that already live in neighborhoods that don't have transportation, that don't have the broadband internet, all these sort of things, and now they're talking about. I mean, here's another sort of glorified poll tax of another term, is what they're doing now is he's done this executive order to say that you need to prove your citizenship, right? You have to show that you're actually a citizen of the United States to vote.
I know.
Well, if you're a woman who's taken your husband's last name, that's not going to match your birth certificate.
No,
They're
it's
already
not.
doing this like in New Hampshire, right? In Ohio, if I'm not mistaken, it was either Ohio or Indiana. What they did was they said, well, you have to have a birth certificate, but to get your birth certificate, you had to have a government issued ID. But to get that government issued ID, what did you have to have? A birth certificate.
Correct.
And we assume I love to say white people, for the most part, say, well, look, I've got one, so everyone's got one, but that's what you have. Of course you have your birth certificate. No, not everyone does.
Not everyone does.
Millions of people don't. And there's a reason.
Yes.
And now you're layering on costs and everything else. It's a whole nother way, again, to segregate, to parse out, and to control, what's going to be taking place. And part of this is always boggles my mind. White people have always been a minority, in the world. They're just starting to figure that out. But as America gets browner, right, there is this white fear, the Great Replacement theory. And so what's going to happen is to further consolidate that power, that white power that's always been there, right? This what we're seeing is that happening right now, to hold on to that. So it ends up becoming, in a sense, hopefully not with the same brutality, but we set a hope on a lot of things, but an apartheid state.
Yes.
No irony here that you have a white South African who grew up under apartheid and benefited from
None
it.
at all.
Who's
Absolutely.
helping put this together.
Yes.
All right. Not conspiracy theory. I'm throwing it out there.
Yeah, but that's not really a conspiracy theory. I mean, facts.
Facts.
Period. It's facts, right? And so with you saying all of that and stuff that I absolutely believe in, how do you see the legacy of the Freedom Riders continuing in today's social justice work?
Oh, the legacy of the Freedom Riders. Well, first we have to understand what the Freedom Riders did.
Yes.
That's part of that.
Tell us about it a little bit. Tell us.
Well, so the Freedom Rides, a lot of people make this confusion that it was about riding the buses. The buses were already integrated at that point. That's not what it was. It was the interstate travel places like the bus stations and train stations and so forth. So because you could ride the bus, and then once you got to the station, now you got to segregate, right? The U.S. Supreme Court had ruled that these need to be opened, that these need to be integrated, but they hadn't been. So what the Freedom Riders were doing, were testing the resolve of the federal government, the White House, and so forth, to see what they were going to do about it. Right. So that's exactly what they did. But they had a very concrete plan going into it. And while everything hit the fan, nothing went as planned. They adapted. They kept their, the phrase goes, eyes on the prize, right? They had their goal. They knew what they were after. And that was flat out just to end segregation in America. That's what SNCC and everyone was about. But but that had to come in pieces. The Freedom Riders was just one component of that. And so when they got, they got attacked in most famously in Rock Hill, and then the burning bus in Anniston, and then all hell breaks loose from that point on with Birmingham and Montgomery, and the call that goes out to send more riders. With those same individuals that were part of SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee that done all the sit-ins, took that call and continued it on. That's where my mom came in. So a call, Paul Dietrich was trapped in the church in Montgomery along with Dr. King and other Freedom Riders. Dr. King wasn't a Freedom Rider, by the way. But they were trapped in the basement of the church. It was surrounded by the Klan, and tear gas was pouring in because the windows were broken. And they each family unit got like a minute or two phone call. And Paul calls my mom and says, "We're trapped in the basement of the church. Send more riders." So she gets her group from Howard University. They fly to New Orleans and then take the Illinois Central to Chicago, getting off in Jackson, Mississippi. So they were coming at different angles. But again, that wasn't the plan. The plan was to end in New Orleans. But the Kennedy administration had sold out the Freedom Riders to Ross Barnett, who said, "We won't beat them in public, right? We'll just arrest them." But they saw that, wait a second, they're just arresting us. They're just filling the jails. So they keep sending more riders. Let's fill the jails up and make things so uncomfortable for them that they have to do something, right? Of course, that's when they cleared out death row and Parchment Penitentiary. But, they kept coming. And they kept pushing, and they had their message. They stuck to it, but they adapted. And in the end, the government caved, which it should. The voice of the people, and that using media and so forth, like my mom talked about in that clip about the power of the press. And media is not just social media; it's all media. To get that message out there, because the what informs, but the why transforms.
Yes,
and they were demonstrating the why, that need for equality. And I think people are starting to see some of that now, and that why in regards of veterans not getting the care they need because these offices are closing down, and the whys of people losing their jobs because Doge is just taking a chainsaw,
gutting everything. Absolutely.
That why is becoming more and more clear. The what on the surface is like, well, look, we need to reduce government spending and more efficiency. I think everyone kind of knows that's a decent thing. The way they're doing it,
right,
clearly demonstrates that's not what their goal is.
Correct.
So
get back to the
take from that. Yeah.
Yes, get back to the counter, y'all. We're here with Loki Mulholland. He has a book. We want you to make sure that you can purchase the book, and you can see in the comment section on how to do it. But we also want you to participate in our book giveaway tonight. And if you put hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers, you will see the opportunity to win this book. Loki, you've said a lot about the work of your mom, Joan Trumpauer Mulholland. And if she was here tonight, what would she say about the racial dynamics in America right now?
Well, I've been hearing her say it a lot lately. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
I see.
But, still we press on till victory is won.
Yes.
It ain't over till it's over, is what she says.
It's not over till it's over.
And I remember my mom saying once as well is, I can't do everything, but I can do something. I can't do everything, but I can do something, because doing nothing is not an option.
That's right.
Right. And we all can do that something. And whatever that might be. I'm not sitting at the lunch counters like my mom did. Right.
Right.
I've have a different, means of doing things. In the civil rights movement, not everyone was involved in the movement. Not every black person was involved in the movement, for goodness sake.
That's right.
Not everyone could be on the front lines. And my mom, every person that was on the front lines, you had, someone, that was back there that had your back, that was doing the typewriters and mimeographs, back then, right? Working the phone lines and getting food and, getting the bond money together, all those sort of things, all these mechanisms that are needed. Doesn't matter where you are, as long as you're there and doing something. And we need to do that something. Me today, I do documentaries and do the foundation work.
Yeah, it says you're a filmmaker and an educator. Yes.
Yeah. So we all have our role, and I mean, I used to beat myself up over that. Like, man, I'm not doing what my mom did. Well, that's okay. That's her day, not today. Right. And so, today we can do things differently, but there's always that need. Never forget the power of being present.
Yeah.
And that's why, social media and those sort of things are important, but being there on the ground in person that people can actually see, talking about the inequalities, is one thing, but being there at a lunch counter and demonstrating in that fashion changed everything. And not only did it just merely open up each town as it went, because Greensboro didn't change Jackson. Jackson changed Jackson. Greensboro changed Greensboro. But when those 4 guys sat down, right now, remember, 4 women who came up with the idea,
Mm-hmm.
and the guys ran with it. We always forget that part. But,
Right.
Within, that was February. Within 3 months, there were some 70,000 sitting throughout the country. 4 guys. And President Obama, in his election, pointed back to those 4 guys sitting at the lunch counter. I asked my mom, I said, did you ever think there'd be a black president? She goes, oh gosh, no, that was the furthest thing from our mind. We just wanted to sit at the counter together. But you never know where your actions will lead.
Never.
Right? So, we just have to be willing to do it, to get going and get moving.
Yeah. And what do you hope young readers, especially those unfamiliar with the history that you've given, take away from Get Back to the Counter?
You say young readers? Is that what you said?
Yep. Young readers.
Yeah, because we actually, what's interesting, it's a book for adults, but it's really, we have students as young as in high school reading the book. I have a high school teacher who gives it out to all of his history students when they graduate. But it's this example, because my mom and her friends, like John and so forth, they were their age or on the cusp of that age. I mean, good grief. Joanne Bland was 11 years old when she was knocked unconscious on the Evan Pettus Bridge, right? Hezekiah Watkins, but he was 14. He was the youngest of the Freedom Riders. He was also the most arrested, over 100 times.
Yes.
So that's their age group. But what I hope they learn from this is how to actually, not only it's a way to live your life, right? But also there's so many students that want to make a difference. They know what's going on, and they want to know how they can do something. And well, these are the principles that govern my mom and what she did, and all the work that they did. By the time she was 23 years old, she'd been involved in about 50 sit-ins and demonstrations. So, when you get to the Jackson sit-in. So
I want you to say more about your mom. One of the things you said earlier in this conversation was that she has no fear.
Yeah. She says, I don't do fear.
She doesn't do fear. Tell us a little bit more about that.
I think she's really good at compartmentalizing. So, and she says, at that lunch counter, she thought that none of them were going to make it out alive. But she said, I'd rather die for something I believe in than being hit by a car while crossing the street during rush hour. I can probably count, I don't know, I think I counted like 6 or 7 times when I've had these conversations on different events. She goes, and that's when I thought we were going to die. I remember at Duke, when she was doing with the sit-ins, we were doing the documentary about her, and I called her roommate that was with her at Duke. And she went to Duke because her mother insisted she go because it was segregated, mind you. My mom just wanted to get out of the house. She goes, okay. Worst place my grandmother could have sent her. She wanted to keep her out of the movement and so forth. But so I asked her roommate, I said, is there anything you feel you could share about your experience at Duke? She goes, I don't really remember too much except for when, we got shot at. It's like, wait, what's that? I was like, wow. So I called my mom, said, did you get shot at when you were at Duke? She goes, oh yeah, I guess so. Like, you guess so? She goes, well, after 2 or 3 times, you kind of lose track.
Wow.
That's my mom. I mean, she just, if you met her, you were talking with her, I mean, she downplays everything. I mean, for us, we're like, oh my gosh, this is, she goes, that's just what we did. I mean, she said, you knew Dr. King was going to get killed, and you knew Medgar Evers would get killed.
Yeah.
And you knew it was a real possibility for yourself because you were in the movement. That was just something they accepted as a price they were willing to pay for freedom.
Yeah. I'm hoping that some of us can get what your mom has, that no fear.
Yeah.
I'm not going back. I'm going to stand up. Even I was reading something about the fact that they were jailed a lot, and they were jailed a lot in penitentiaries, and how they had it separated, just for them, because they knew that they were going to bring all these people in or whatever. And I remember her talking about how there's a lot of interfaith things happening, and rabbis coming to visit them and saying prayers, but also taking out messages, in an indiscreet way. So yeah, I think that's very powerful.
And they were secret. There were coded, letters that would come in that they thought that the jail people thought would be funny for my mom to get. Right.
Wow.
One was from her, her ex-husband, or at that point was basically her ex-husband anyways, Trumpauer. And so he sent a letter. They thought it was him sending a letter that he was divorcing her basically in this letter, but it was all coded. And, even the name, they figured out who sent the letter and so forth. And it was basically telling them what was going on and who was where and so forth off of this letter. These guys were slick. I mean, they really knew what they were doing. And you talk about, there was the penitentiaries and so forth, like Parchman, but they also, I mean, in Jackson, I think it was at Medgar's funeral when all hell broke loose there. They rounded people up and put them in the state fairgrounds into the cattle barns, and they would put their food in the troughs and so forth, just like they were cattle.
My Lord.
So,
my Lord.
Yeah. But yet still they pressed on.
Still they pressed on.
Yeah.
Listen, people, we are listening. We are talking to Loki Mulholland. Again, we want you to have the opportunity to be a part of the free book giveaway. Make sure you put hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers in so that you can get the book. But we also want you to purchase the book. And so make sure that you look in the section so that you can see how to purchase the book. We have a question in the audience. We want to make sure that we give an opportunity. So if you have questions in the last couple of minutes, we want to make sure that we give you an opportunity to ask any question you might have. So I see this question here from L. Lee on YouTube. He wants to know, do you think your book will be placed on the book ban list?
If I'm only so fortunate. I take that as a badge of honor, right? I mean, Ruby is banned.
Yeah.
So, and it's interesting to think. It's like, okay, so you're opposed to a white woman following her Christian values? That's what you're banning? I mean, the irony of it would be rich. Hypocrisy would be even richer, right? So, but I would personally, that would be a badge of honor. Yeah.
Thank you. And if I had to ask you one last question, my question would be to you, Loki. What would you desire to happen right now? They said thank you to you too. Right now in this place and in this time, what would you like to see happening as it relates to social justice movements and organizing? Because one of the things you talked about earlier was more organizing. And I think that some people may not really know how to do it. And one of the things I've been telling people is that they should connect with organizations that are already in existence. But if people want to organize and they don't want to be a part of something that's already existing, what do you suggest that they do?
Well, it's the same thing my mom always says, find a problem you're passionate about, get some friends together and go solve it. I mean,
absolutely,
it's literally that simple.
Yeah.
How you go about doing it is up to you. And don't forget the power of intersectionality, right? But again, there are organizations out there doing it. Don't try to change the world, just change your world, whatever that might be. And we would like to sit there and particularly when it comes to voting and things like that. Don't forget the power of the vote. That's most critical because we see the results of what happens when we don't vote. And don't think for a moment that it's just because not enough people voted or anything else. A big portion of this is because of voter suppression.
Correct.
Right? Definitely voter apathy, but voter suppression in particular. And that's been developed over years.
Yeah.
But it all happens at the local level.
Yeah.
So take the Board of Education, for example. So as they try to dismantle that, the money's still going to come. But they're talking about doing it in block grants, but there won't be those strings attached to it. Hey, these are the requirements. So what's going to happen to that money once it hits the state? That's going to be determined by the state legislators, and that's also going to be determined by the local municipalities. So who's representing you and your needs, right? That's where the local elections really matter. And that's also where the national stage starts to see what's working and what's not, right? It's a little bellwether type stuff. It's like, okay, well, people are really getting excited about, the book bannings and so forth. Let's ride that for a little bit. Let's ride the CRT for a little bit, whatever gets people juiced up, right? Mm-hmm. All those things they got excited about that got that man into the White House this time. Have we heard anything about that lately?
Right.
So suddenly the price of eggs don't matter. Suddenly, the inflation isn't an issue.
That's right.
They're even trying to spin a recession. There always needs to be a correction in the stock market and in the economy. It's like, wait, what? I mean, it's just absurdity. But that was what was needed for the time. I haven't heard anything about immigrants eating people's dogs.
Come on. Absolutely.
Where is that? That was so important. I haven't heard anything about that, right? So at the end of the day, and it frustrates people to hear this, but it's the power of the vote, because that's what the civil rights activists figured out. Yes, we can ride the buses. Yes, we can sit at the lunch counters, but if we can't vote, then as Vernon Damer says, if you don't vote, you don't count.
Absolutely.
That's why they need the vote. And he was willing to die, and he did die, but he was willing to die for that. And he was killed because he was willing to help his people register to vote, because they understood that if you can get the people in office that represent your values, that's where it's going to change.
And for people, because you mentioned this, and this is going to be my last question to you, for people who, like you said, they're going to be making people produce their birth certificates and all of these different things. And we know that, if I got married and I took my husband's last name or whatever it is, and it may not be the same as my birth certificate, what should they do? What is the game plan for all of this? Because we know it's coming.
Right. Well, and that's it. If we know it's coming, if you really, if that's important to you and you want to make a difference with that, figure out what the T's that need to be crossed and the I's that need to be dotted. Make sure that's readily available. Put it on a piece of paper. Go in there and do the work and start sharing that with people. Yeah. And if you have the means, figure out what the requirements are to get a birth certificate for that neighbor who can't get one. Right? Okay, well, here's all the hoops you have to jump through. Here's how much time it takes. So figure all that out. Because what typically happens is people wait too long and then they go into a panic and then things aren't working. That's what they expect. Right. They get frustrated. No, we're not going to do it. So getting ahead of it, understanding what those rules are going to be. And then, quite frankly, as well, is going, okay, some of this costs money. Now, I don't know how much a birth certificate costs, but let's say it's $100. When people are living paycheck to paycheck, $100 is a lot of money, especially in this economy. Right? So if there's a need, figure out how to fundraise for something like that. We can fundraise for all sorts of crazy stuff.
Absolutely.
So what about the most important things?
I like that. Fundraise for folks to get their birth certificates. I know that's right. That's great. Thank you. Last thing, if there was one last word or some things that you would want to say to the people before you left, what would it be?
Oh, gosh. I'm just thinking about what, my fraternity brother, Jesse Jackson, liked to say, right? Keep hope alive, right? we know who wins in the end. Right will always prevail.
Yeah.
We just have to be willing to be there when it happens and be a part of that gravity that bends the moral arc of the universe towards justice. That we are that gravity.
Yeah.
And we will bend it back.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So I'm going to ask you a specific question. I'm going to ask it, even though I said that was the last thing you was going to say.
All right.
And they said, what do you think about the whole erasure of Black history? I think we did speak a little bit about this, but speaking of Medgar Evers, they removed him from the federal websites.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know the Evers family, fairly well. I did a documentary with them, and my mother worked with Medgar. It's deplorable, to say the least. It's cowardly, and I think the response is appropriate for people to speak out and be willing to. Okay, well, we're gonna I did a video with a guy named George Sedbury. He's known as White George on social media, right? And he does all these HBCU stuff. And I said, hey,
I know who he is. Yes.
Yeah, let's meet there. So we made sure that we're going to tell some of that history at Arlington Cemetery, right? If the government's not going to tell that history, right, and try to hide it, then it's up to us to make sure it's being told.
It's up to us. Yes, it is.
And that's a great place for social media, is to make sure that history continues to be told and to hear the full history. I mean, I think it's on Showtime, whatever Showtime is now, but it's on Showtime. The documentary, go to our website and see the film, The Evers. Joanne Reed's got her book as well. But that's, I mean, I growing up, we knew about Martin, of course, and we knew about Malcolm, but in my mom's house, it was always Medgar.
Yeah.
She said, above all else, remember Medgar. And so we're not going to let that, go by. That his memory is not going to be, his memory is not going to fade into oblivion.
Thank you so much for that, Loki. And thank you for being our guest on this evening. Before everyone leaves, you know that we're going to give away this book. We want you to put hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers in there so that you can win the opportunity. We also have 2 announcements that we want to make, and I'm going to make those announcements as well.
Remember, that's a signed book, signed by my mother.
That's right. Signed by Joan Trumpauer Mulholland. Signed by her. We love that. Thank you so much. I have 2 announcements I want to make. The first thing is I appreciate everyone continuing to watch Beyond the Gatekeepers. We talk about current events through a theological and justice-informed lens. And we want you to continue to support our broadcast by sending in the donations. We want to say thank you to everyone that has done so and that continues to do so. And for those that have not, please go to PayPal, to our PayPal at www.paypal.me/TFAMJustice. That's www.paypal.me/TFAMJustice. We appreciate your support. The last thing I want to announce is the fact that Bishop Yvette Flunder is inviting you to our convocation. Our convocation is June 30th to July 6th in Atlanta at the Hilton Atlanta in Atlanta, Georgia. Our theme is We Still Believe. We still dance, we still protest, we still love, we still believe. Go to www.tfamconference.org. That is www.tfamconference.org. And our registration early bird is $200 and ends in May 1st. General registration is $250 and ends June 27th. And on-site registration is $275. And we are planning everything now. We will be celebrating Bishop Flunder's 70th birthday. While we're there, we will be celebrating TFAM's 20th anniversary. And this will be Bishop Flunder's last convocation that she will be the host of. And so we want to encourage you all to be in attendance. We want to encourage you all to be in attendance. TFAM will still be going on. She will still be there, but she will not be the host of it. And so we want you all to come and be with us in Atlanta. Thank you all so very much. I hope you all put in hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers. where we're going to be talking again on next week. We have some other guests that are coming in, and we want you to join us. But we want you to win this book tonight. I'm telling you, it's a powerful book. It's something that you want to share. It's something like Loki said. One of the things that he made mention of is that it's going to be something that we have to teach. So if they are erasing it and they don't want to teach it, you know it, then you can teach it. This is one way. This is a book that you can use to help teach about the history of our people, right? Hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers. All right, Pastor Sue. L. Lee, thank you so much. You are the winner. He's been watching on YouTube. He even told us this was so good. This should be viewed by millions. Thank you so much for being on with us. Do me a favor. Get in touch with us via our Facebook page if you can. It's on Beyond the Gatekeepers. That's the name of the page. If you messenger us, put your full name and address, and Loki will make sure that you receive a signed book by Joan Trumpauer Mulholland, right? So we appreciate you all tonight. We thank you, Loki. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your perseverance. Thank you for being a great filmmaker and telling your story through education and through writing books and, also through making wonderful documentaries and films. Greatly appreciated your work. And thank your mother. Thank your mother. Thank your mother sincerely. Yeah, thank your mother for the work that she has done and continues to do as you all travel across the United States and through the world, letting people know that this is what it's all about and that you all about social justice and the work of social justice. We appreciate her. I see this is a photo right here. I think of the Civil Rights Museum, if I'm not mistaken. And there's a statue. If you're not visited, you need to go to the Civil Rights Museum and you will see his mom there. You'll see that statue. Thank you all tonight. I appreciate you. Love you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.